Okay, welcome back to Extremas. Today we're going to be talking about how to define maxes and mins with calculus techniques. So, let's start off with some steps. Number 1, we need to find the derivative. We need to find f prime of x. Number 2, we need to find our critical values. And you may ask, what are critical values? Critical values is when f prime of x is 0 or undefined. 0 or undefined. Just like any other algebraic equation, I need to find my zeros or undefined. Number 3, we're going to set up our test points. So we're going to take our critical values, we're going to take a value below it and a value that's higher than it. And then our fourth step, we're going to analyze it. We're going to analyze the signs of our test points. Negative is decreasing, positive is increasing. We're going to analyze that, and then hopefully we can determine our max or our min. Alright, so I have an example that we're going to do. Okay. We have f of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 10. And our first step, we need to find f prime of x. So do the derivative through power rule. If you don't know how to do the derivative with power rule, check our power rule video. You get 2x plus 6. And I said we need to set our derivative equal to 0 or undefined. Here we can't have anything undefined. We can only find our zeros, which is -3. Basic algebra. -3. So what does -3 represent? This is our critical value. -3 is our critical value. So with our critical value, we're going to set up some endpoints. We're going to set up -3 in the middle. We're going to put a line above. Now let's pick one value below -3 and a value above -3. I can't use -3 in our derivative because it will just give us 0, which doesn't help. If I use -4, that'll tell me if the sign is negative or positive. And remember, if f prime represents the slope, so if the slope is negative and the slope is positive, so we're going to plug in f prime -4. We only want the signs. I don't care about the value. I don't care if it's -1, -2, -3, 4, 5. I care if it's negative or positive. We plug in -4, we get a negative number. Plug in 0, we will get a positive number. So for all my negative numbers and all my positive, I'm going to show you how to write it with this graph. So if it's negative, write a downward arrow. If it's positive, write an upward arrow. Positive slopes go like that. Negative slopes goes like that. Remember, f prime of x is our slopes. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, let me write an example. So that's just a normal parabola with a min at the circled point. Now, let's try to formulate that. Isn't that on our graph, on our interval test point, that's just like the graph I just wrote. We have from decreasing to increasing, just like that. So that means that point, -3, our critical values are our mins or our max, not the test points. Our critical values. Whenever we have a change from decreasing to increasing or increasing to decreasing, that value, our critical value, is our min. So you write min at -3. Well, how do I find that next point? I would simply just plug it into our original function, which would be -3, 1. So our min would be at -3, 1. Critical values are always where your min's at, not your test points. Okay, let's do another one. So we have f of x equals x over x plus 3. So let's find the derivative through quotient rule. Again, quotient rule, we made a video on it. If you need a review, low d high minus high d low over low squared. X plus 3 times the derivative of x, which is 1, minus x times the derivative of x plus 3, 1 over x plus 3 squared. Okay, so if I distribute my 1s and my negatives, I get x plus 3 minus x over x plus 3 squared. I simplify even further, I get 3x plus 3 squared. Now let me rewrite it over here. I have f prime of x equals 3x plus 3 squared. Now, remember, our critical values are when our derivative is 0 or undefined. Well, our x is in the denominator, so you should know if you're in calculus that -3 would make it undefined. Any number, if you have a 0 in the denominator, it's always undefined. -3 makes this function undefined. Therefore, -3 is our critical value. So let's set up that graph, -3, and we'll value below it and a value above it, -4 and 0. So we evaluate f prime -4. We want the sign, and 3 -4 plus 3 squared is always positive. So positive, I write a upward arrow. F prime of 0 is also positive. I write another upward arrow. So let's formulate this picture, which is just an upward arrow. Now, I have no extremas. I have no change. Remember, a max is when there's a change. A min is when there's a change. Both my arrows point in the same direction. There's no change, therefore there's no extrema. So there would be no extrema for this, no max or mins. So hopefully you found this video helpful. Please help us out and share this video with your friends. Share it with your calc class, your math teacher. Please like and subscribe and share. Remember, we are the Extremas. Drop some video ideas down below.